study sessions. Testing, testing, 1, 2, check, 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 1, 2. Can you message Jake and tell him the guests and chambers are having issues? Check, 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 1, 2. You should hear.
We're back. And thank you for your patience while we fix that Wi-Fi issue. And we're in the process of talking to Crystal Clemens, our city and county clerk, on her 2026 budget. Next for questions is Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions about Eagle Trace. They're kind of high level. And the first one is, as we review, what? Oh, sorry, the clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going on to the, oh, I'm sorry. I am in my own little world doing the, no, I have any questions for the clerk. Sorry.
Hold off on that one.
Just one at a time, sorry.
That's okay. Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor.
The clerk question.
On the clerk questions,
Okay.
I have internet, so we're ready to rock and roll. My only question is, I saw in the presentation that core requests have gone up. And so my question is, if with the expectation that, core requests, call open record acts will increase and continue, will the clerk and recorder have the capacity to address core requests.
Yes, and that's because council last year in our budget for this year, we were approved for the Just Voya software. So it has really streamlined our core process on intake and response time. And the public can also then go online and see past core requests. So the hope is maybe instead of getting multiple requests for the same item, they'll be able to see the history of what was already provided.
That's my only question, Mayor. Thank you very much.
All right, excellent. Any other questions for Ms. Clemens? All right, well, thank you so much for being here and all of the work that you did to bring this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to start with community development. Who is here? Ms. Allen? And Ms. Merwin. And would you like to introduce yourselves?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Katie Allen, Director of Community Development. And I'm here with our two deputy directors, our planning director, Lynn Merwin, and our city engineer and deputy director, Matthew Deaver.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So any questions for community development? Did you want to go on this one, Councilmember Anderson? I don't know where it would fit.
That's all right. We'll have a subsection A, Miss Allen, and I'll field the Eagle Trace questions.
Okay. Well, are there any other questions for community development? I'll wait. Doesn't look like it. Okay. We see you so much. I know. Y'all are busy. Okay. Thank you. Next is human resources. Come on down, Ms. Macklin.
Feels like the price is right.
It
but not
does.
really.
I'm trying to make it fun. I can't promise any questions.
Good evening.
Mayor, if council would like to make any editorial comments on the videos, making these video presentations are very stressful. And so we have multiple rounds of what brevity looks like, what to highlight, what not to highlight.
I was really afraid you were about to introduce a blooper.
Your
of mine.
presentation. Oh my gosh, if I had one, I'd introduce it. Yeah, in years, as council knows, we've done this process a multitude of ways, but the last 2 years that have been most successful is the department heads make a presentation, council reviews those presentations, and then that informs the questions. So if council would like to ask questions specific to the presentations or any additional things that aren't included in the presentation, staff is more than prepared to field those questions as well. So they don't have to be specific to the presentations.
All right, perfect. Are there any questions for Ms. Macklin? Councilmember Lim?
I noticed the increased costs were partly understandably due to employee insurance.
Yes.
So having served on that board when there needed to be a council representative, I'm somewhat familiar with that. So we have been, I think from my perspective, the plan looks to be very generous. So are we comfortable with absorbing costs into our budget and I guess not passing them on to employees, which would not be popular, I realize.
Sure. So we did a survey, it's been about 1.5 years ago, of all the other municipalities that we compare ourselves to for the purpose of defining our compensation plan. So we did the same thing with benefits, and Broomfield is very competitive. I wouldn't say generous. I mean, we are very blessed. We have a good plan, and it is competitive with those in the market. We've been able, as you know, having served on the MSEP Board of Trustees, the the plan has been very well managed through consumer-driven healthcare and education of our employees. They've really done a good job making good choices that allowed for example, rather than using the emergency department, somebody may choose to use urgent care, which has saved the self-insured plan a ton of money. So thanks to our employees and the department for really helping folks use that plan wisely. The plan has run really well, and we have not had to increase rates since 2022, which is unheard of. As you know, that trend in the market is roughly 8 to 12% right now. So we are looking at an increase to our plan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So when I was reading your memo for your department budget, one of the things that popped out was the ERP system is tied to human resources, which I don't know how I didn't make that connection, but this was the first time I truly made that connection of how embedded this was going to be within human resources. So can you tell me about how this is going to create efficiencies within your department being tied to this new system as opposed to creating non-efficiencies that will ultimately slow down, what you had was an amazing amount of onboarding, recruiting, hiring of employees this past year?
Sure. So an ERP system on the HCM side allows us to look at the human capital management. So our greatest resource, that's everything from all the data that surrounds employees, that allows us to pay them biweekly, that allows us to enroll them in their benefits, pay the carriers through the benefit feeds. That information then feeds into our performance management system. It also feeds into our applicant tracking system. So there will be a ton of efficiencies by just having all of that in one system, then being able to connect that to the finance side of the house. So there are a lot of inefficiencies right now because we honestly just don't have good data. So for example, if Jennifer asked us to run a report of turnover this past year, we would have to cobble together probably 3 different reports from 3 different systems, which uses a ton of staff time and really results in potentially human errors. So there's a huge opportunity here. What started out initially as a finance project grew to include HR as part of the recommendation. And we're going to be meeting with you next week around the ERP to explain that more. But it is a very common practice to have those 2 systems integrated.
And so we kind of got an idea of how much time this was going to take for finance just to do their system. Is the input of data into the ERP system include that within that timeline, or is this in addition to that timeline for what finance is going to have to spend to put?
So finance has their own timeline, and then HR has their own timeline, because all of the human capital management, so all of the information that's in our current HRIS, our current ATS, which is our applicant tracking system, and then performance management will have to move over.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. My only question to Human Resources is in the performance measures, the increased overall employee satisfaction was increased from 78% or 78 to 2024 to a score to 80 in 2025. Is this, what's the metrics of this? Is it like 80 out of 100 or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And what is the, I guess, the goal for employee satisfaction for 2026?
Well, we set a goal in partnership with our leadership team and our ERC. So we have not done that yet for 2026. The survey takes place in July. We just completed our 2025 survey. So we're in the process right now of what we call action planning. So we take the results from that survey. We look at 2 different things. What are our strengths so that we continue to nurture those? And then what are our opportunities for improvement? And that is the very reason our score improved, is because organizationally, everyone is actively involved in that action planning, being able to take the feedback from the employees and say, we heard you, and now we're going to respond and do something about it.
Okay. That's my only question. I mean, obviously, screening and onboarding hundreds of employees, maintaining a strong workforce, thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Ms. Macklin, I was going to clarify on Councilmember Nguyen's question. The survey results, the score is different than the response rate. So if you would be able to, and what is the standard response rate and what is the standard score? So Ms. Macklin, having been from another organization, we just started doing these, the employee-wide really deep dives on the work studies. in 2023. So
Sure.
the 4 out of 5 stars versus the 3 out of 5. So again, it's to clarify the 80%, it's not like a score of 100%.
Correct.
It's more of the 1 to 5. So would you clarify that, please?
Sure. So the score you're referencing, if we're talking about the same thing, was an engagement score of 80. Is that what you're referencing? Okay. So that one particular question, thank you, Ms. Hoffman, that score is tied to one question on the survey. And that's, would you recommend Broomfield as a place to work? And then there are other questions. There's 29 questions within the survey that get at different things. As far as participation, it really depends on the industry. You know, I know we have folks on council that range from, you know, education to healthcare to government. Depending on the industry, it's all over the board. I will say Broomfield is unusually unique in terms of how high our participation rates were. There was a lot of healthy competition amongst the departments. So HR would report out every couple of days where everybody was at, and that helped. There were also some incentives that were provided to our employees to complete their survey because we wanted to hear their voice. As far as the engagement score of 80, that is incredibly high.
That is good news. So again, I appreciate the clarification, Manager Hoffman, and of course, yeah, thank you so much again, Ms. Macklin.
All right. Any other questions for Human Resources? Thank you very much, Ms. Macklin. Next, we have Human Services. Come on down, Ms. Munoz.
Hello, and I have my team here. I have my Executive Ops Manager, Vanita Dye, and our Deputy Director, Chris Dewhurst.
Right. Does anyone have any questions for Human Services? Councilmember Lim?
In your 2026 project slide, you previewed the fact that you will have to do work, which is kind of well known in the public also, to implement HR1. And that involves the new work requirements, the new eligibility, all the new eligibility requirements. So I didn't get a good feel for is that reflected in the budget in any way? Do you anticipate that that's all going to be done with the current staff, or what it is, or is 2026 just the planning and the 27 budget will be the staffing for that plan?
Thank you. It's a great question. It will be more 2026 is really going to be our planning phase. Now, some of those requirements will go into effect, some for different eligibility requirements in 2026, but a lot of it will be a planning phase. We're still waiting on a lot of federal guidance and state guidance, which has kind of put us on hold. And so it's really business as usual for us into 2026, just being prepared to see how our staffing will be impacted. And that, again, is based on a lot of federal guidance. And so it's business as usual for us, specifically on the budget for 2026. And we'll transition into see what will be for 2027.
Okay, good. My second question involves something I just heard about the state. There's a new estimate of the state budget problems that are going to come out next week, possibly. And it will reflect that there is a large increase in the number of seniors joining Medicaid because of long-term nursing needs, where they've exhausted their resources and then they're going on to Medicaid in order to stay in the nursing facility. Now, I'm not sure, I didn't know where to ask this question. Do I ask HHS or do I ask Public Health? And I know CDPHE actually licenses the nursing facilities, but I guess I am concerned when I heard that. How will we see that? Do we anticipate that we'll see that increase in Broomfield? And do we have the facilities in Broomfield in order to house, well, it's a housing issue too, house those elderly people who have to go onto Medicaid for long-term nursing?
Thank you. It is a combination of a few different things. Specifically, what I would highlight is we're more tied to the eligibility piece, but one of the big things with some of these new Medicaid expansion pieces and all the different areas is that we're waiting for HCPF, so for the state to actually be able to give us some of the projections of impacts, specifically to seniors and long-term care, LTC. It hasn't been a high topic in conversations with the state right now outside of just the general Medicaid population, which LTC will fall under on the different sides. But I do know specifically with our providers, that's something that has always been a challenge as far as Medicaid beds and things like that tied to LTC. So we can get back to you and do some research. Yeah, so we can circle back.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. I have two questions. And I had three, but Councilmember Lim took a lot of them, which is, I think it's top of our list, just talking about federal dollars. And then also that affects state dollars, which affects, our population, obviously. So I would like to just kind of flesh out with the 5-year strategic plan. How are we building resiliency in that? Or can you explain a little bit about how we could shift gears if certain things pass at the federal level? What sort of thoughts and stakeholder groups have you guys looked at with the strategic plan?
Thank you. We're at the very beginning stages of mapping out our strategic plan with our staff. So we actually have a retreat coming up here in the next couple weeks with our staff to really develop our mission and vision and really look at what our different pillars are. But up until that moment, we've had, similar to what we're doing from the bigger lens, listening sessions with our staff, just getting their feedback on operations, any concerns, any challenges. And we're going to really loop that into an all-day session to really identify our priorities. And my hope with that is really with the voice of the staff, that's going to build in a lot of our resiliency and commitment on what we see as priorities, but also identify areas where we can really continue to grow and or be prepared for. And so I'm really looking forward to being able to really finalize that, because I think that will help also guide us as leaders and being able to make the decisions we need to as we approach these changes, and also are looking at how it aligns to the bigger picture and strategic plan of City and County of Broomfield.
Thank you. I would like to just sort of give some input into that, making sure that we have stakeholder groups, because I know you guys really do rely on nonprofits a lot too. And nonprofits can move a lot quicker in certain areas. So that's why we use nonprofits to help serve needs that we can't always. And so I'm just going to highlight one sort of area that Councilmember Lim very intelligently addressed, is this aging population. Colorado itself has the 3rd fastest growing aging population in the United States. And Broomfield is also going to have a huge explosion. A big part of that is not only like nursing home care or just homes for people to be in. We're looking at also aging in place. What does that look like? And how are we reaching out to our aging population and then the sandwiched families who are taking care of grandma and kids? How are we allowing them to age in place, to utilize the homes that they are already in and modifying those? Because we do have a lot of nonprofits that work in those spaces to address, sort of our aging population. So that kind of leads me into our nonprofit ecosystem too. I know that there was a lot of pre-applications this year, and I'm hearing that there were, I think, even 9 more additional nonprofits applying for dollars here to serve Broomfield residents. What do you guys see as sort of a predictors of the money that might go out for our nonprofits this year, and how might that affect our budget next year?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. A couple of things really wanting to highlight too is that we're really looking at evaluating all of our grants over the past few years to be able to really see more meaningful data on really who are we funding, what are the impacts of those, to continue to make decisions and drivers in case we need to moving into our 2027 budget. also balancing a lot of that, looking into the budget. Specifically, we've maintained the same expectation and standard scoring system into 2026. But what we have done in advance is provided our nonprofit partners more direct communication that 2027 may look different. And that's really important from a transparency lens here in Human Services, because we know people come to depend on our grants on a consistent basis. And so we really want to let people know we're going to be evaluating our grants and really seeing where that need is coming into 2027. So we're really trying to be strategic and thoughtful while also balancing out, right, our human services needs and whatever may come into 2027. So our tier 1, 2, 3 will continue scoring at the level that we've been scoring. And then we can hopefully, I know Mandy comes and does a full report out of who receives what, but Mandy will be able to bring that all to you as well.
I would pay $1 million to keep Mandy. She's amazing.
She is
I
phenomenal.
work with her very closely in other boards, and I just feel like her attention to detail. If you're listening, Mandy, I don't know if she's here.
I'll let her know.
I know sometimes staff listens online,
Times.
and I'm sure a lot of our staff in your department does an incredible job too. And I know that you guys are kind of under duress, possibly with loss of funding from the federal level. And I just want to thank you for your participation in getting all stakeholders involved, because we're going to have to move through some really rough times. And it's going to take our nonprofits to move quicker in areas where maybe we can't. And then also just to get boots on the ground answers, I think that that's really important. So thanks for doing that.
Great. Thank you.
And Councilmember Hinkle, if I may add from a financial perspective, the asks are about 450,000 more than we have available. So that's number one. Number two, the mill levy that supports human services, that pays for the nonprofit grants, along the corresponding decrease in property tax, the rate has a corresponding decrease with regards to that mill levy. So it's a double whammy. So needs will be significantly up. Funding is not significantly down, but dramatically down. That delta will continue to grow. So even your 2 points about what does it look like to assist our seniors, which is our fastest growing population. So it's not coming, it's here. It will remain here. It's not exploding yet, but it will be and remains our fastest growing population. So the service demand will continue to increase outside of the federal and outside of the state cuts. Just with the population we have now, without increasing any population, it really is going to be what we've talked about before. 2027 for us is going to be significantly more difficult to solve than 2026 was. So we're starting that process early. The nonprofits will be coming back with a discussion in October. We'll be having additional conversations about the funding. So again, it's reallocation. It's not reprioritization. We'll have those conversations with regard to housing from a BHA line level perspective, the nonprofit line level perspective, and how do we navigate through that? Those conversations start in earnest in March. We're starting the 2027 budget, much to budget's super excitement, the folks in the front row. 1 week after we bring council the final 2028 budget. So that's how early we're starting to prepare for 2027, because it will be extraordinarily difficult.
Right, all right, thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question really is about the 2026 key initiatives. You mentioned both in your presentation and in the video, the launching of the Human Services 5-year strategic plan. Is this kind of a reiteration of a strategic plan you've done in the past, or is this something new that the department is taking on for the first time?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Human Services has had a variety of different mission vision. They've had pillars and goals. And I'm newer here, so we wanted to really launch a 5-year strategic plan, knowing that we have a lot of shifts and changes with the staff. And so it's been some time since the strategic plan has been revisited at a 5-year mark. And so this will be new for us. However, we're not starting with nothing. Obviously, we have some great pillars, vision statement, mission statement. We're just really wanting to prioritize and really look at what our staff and what our department needs in a more strategic way and do it thoughtfully over time and also in alignment with city and county.
Okay. And I know obviously the city and county of Broomfield is doing an overall organizational strategic plan update right now. Is that and this human services 5-year strategic plan gonna, I guess, marry or pair well together, or should they be viewed really as two separate things, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. We're really fortunate that actually Danae also has been helping work with our strategic planning for human services. And our hope is that it's a standalone for our department, but being very mindful of really braiding through, right, all the way up to city and county of what things fall. Because there's going to be some high level things from human services on the overall and overarching strategic plan. But then from a human services lens, as you know, we have a lot of different marks we need to hit and also want to focus on from a customer service level. So this, I'm hoping, will be more of the, we have the 10,000 foot view. And then for us, for our department, it's really getting more in the weeds on what we really want to focus on and really set our strategic targets over the next 5 years.
Okay. And then my last question on that and overall is what is the timeline for that strategic plan, both the planning portion and the implementation portion of that?
Sure. So we do have our large planning staff retreat here in a couple of weeks. From there, we're going to form different committees to finish out our KPIs and really kind of wrap things up towards the end of this last quarter with our hope to really implement our new strategic plan in Q1 of 2026.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's it, Mayor.
All right. Thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had one question and one more question that came up during council member comments and questions. So in this report, it talked about SWAP. This is something that at this point, time of the year, I don't get a whole lot of questions because the weather's still nice, even though I'm wearing a sweatshirt inside. But the weather is starting to change, and I will start getting more questions about is there a program in place to ensure that nobody's outside when it's very cold. So it sounds like that there were some changes made in 2025, but perhaps those changes will actually be made in 2026. So can you talk more about these specific changes to the SWAP program and how these will impact the community?
Sure. And we can also send you just some information as follow-up as well to not go too into the weeds. But we do have something that we've shifted to launch for this next activation period. So it would be 2025. And we've modeled this for across a variety of different cities and counties, and that is a pre-registration model for SWAP. And so we had a couple events recently, one at the Refuge, one at Human Services, where we're able to pre-register folks who are planning on utilizing SWAP. Why is this important? We're looking at really trying to do this in a more trauma-informed and equitable way. Currently, right now, if there's just a line at the door, right, whoever has the means to get there first in line might be the one that gets the voucher first. And so we're really trying to be intentional of being able to really get folks registered, and then we're going to utilize different scoring mechanisms and parameters to really prioritize if and when we have to, right? So we still have the same allotment of funding into 25, 26, and same allotment of rooms that we have, but we want to be more strategic and be able to get people more synchronized and also be able to track them and also provide them the service a lot more efficiently and really save hopefully some extra steps that people need to take. So the key is to pre-register, I would say, is the big step. You can go online for Almost Home. In the fact that and it's not just these events, you can go online. There's a process in which you can do that. You can call in the event that we have someone that we pick up that day they didn't know. We have a process for that as well. So that is the big shift, but it was very successful. We feel we have the majority of our folks who are on our by name list registered and pre-registered. So they were excited about this too, and the opportunity to have just more equitable selection as we go through our vouchers and our limits to those vouchers.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then my second question is around the financial grant or the federal grants. So this has been something that has been a note within our past annual financial audits, as well as the internal performance audits. And I was curious, there was a note in the memo that talked about partnering with CCOB finance team to develop a more efficient and streamlined process for preparing the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So I was curious, is this alone going to reduce the amount of kind of stress that has, or the concern that has been there with those reports? Or is there going to be more that will take place in 2026 to address some of these past concerns around federal grants?
Yeah, I'm really excited to share that we've run a process improvement event with the finance team, and it's, yeah, David's happy. It's been a tremendous success. So we're in the final stage of really wrapping up new processes and recommendations. So we've been, in essence, locked in a room with the finance team for 4 days, separate 4 days, really working through and mapping through all the processes and challenges that go through a grant and finding ways to be not only efficient from an internal perspective from our relationship, getting the contracts through, scope of work, but also making it a better process for our partners as well, whether it be our nonprofits, the states, or the feds that we're working at. And our hope is that then it can be implemented not only just between human services, but city and county wide. And so we're very excited about it. I would hope that we'd be more into Q1 as we work through some of this, right, David? I would say, since I see him here working with me. But we are working on really establishing that. So I really think it will make a tremendous difference in operations.
Okay, and so that'll include the back, not only the front end of getting those grant dollars in, but also the back end and reporting those dollars as well.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I kind of just have something off topic, but I think it kind of relates to the nonprofit grants and funding and the property tax revenue being down. I heard there's some chatter out in the community about this mythical, I think they're saying $15 million for the Butterfly Pavilion. I think it was actually a $12 million commitment, but I think we need to clarify that that money was never in existence. Ms. Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Some background on that. That agreement specifically for the Butterfly Pavilion was in 2 tranches. One was a 6 million and one was 7 million. The 7 million was to be paid back to Broomfield with what's called a PIF, which is a dollar for every ticket. And then the 6 million was from those that made that initial agreement. We being CCOB, when fundraising got to a certain point that it looked inevitable that construction would begin, we were going to begin to put $1 million a year into that fund. It never got to that point. There was never a point with regards to fundraising, construction, or economic development around that area that would have triggered that milestone for us to start putting any money away. So no, there is no account. And more importantly, there never has been.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I hope that clears up any misunderstanding. And thank you so much, Lisana. I appreciate all of you and keep up the great work. Next, the library and many other things.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff. I'm Catherine, Director of Library Arts, History, and CSU Extension. And I have our new Deputy Director, who should look familiar, Allison, with us, as well as Wendy Norris, our Library Office Business Manager, Sarah Schweig, who is our CSU Extension Director, and Rose Gorell, who is our Arts and History Manager.
All right, then. That was a great intro. Let's get right into the questions. Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the big projects that was just completed was the sound and lighting I guess, performance package. I'm not quite sure how to call it, but the upgrade that was completed in the auditorium. And I'm curious if there's been any outside use of the auditorium since it was completed. If there wasn't, even what is the response to these upgrades that were made? This was kind of a notice deal within the community that this was going to be happening. And so I'm curious, the auditorium's been dark for a bit. And so now that these upgrades are done, what's the response to this?
Well, council member, Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf, they aren't done yet. This is, I know that you noticed from the slides and stuff that this is 425 accomplishments. So I was already claiming it. It is in process now. So we haven't reopened, but we're going to have an open house when we do, because we have many renters who are eager to see the upgrades so that they can be planning their productions differently. I'd say the most exciting to our staff is the options with the lighting will mean we have a whole array for being way more creative than we've been able to be in the past. And then I think there's going to be some sound improvements that a lay ear like mine may not notice, but our staff are very excited about that as well.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And my visits to the library, I've seen the sign out front that says it's closed for upgrades. I didn't see it this last time, so I was hopeful that it was all completed. I look forward to the response from the community after the open house. And I think that the other piece is, space constraints for the library continue to exist. You all have done a spectacular job of reformatting the look and feel of the library in order to accommodate more people coming through the library. It's not just the library; it's the auditorium, the backstage areas, the wings of the auditorium. It's the maker space that is highly utilized. So all of these spaces continue to get more and more people, yet the space constraints continue to exist. So for 2026. Are there goals in order to continue that kind of reformatting of space, or are we kind of tapped out at all of kind of the flexibility that exists?
Tapping out is not something that's in my nature, nor our staff's nature. So we will continue to work that. We are definitely finding more and more programs. We're turning people away just from a space constraints issue. But you will see this year for our One Book, One Broomfield program in particular, we will have 2 sessions because we have been turning 100 people away. So we are looking at things like that. And then I'm very excited with our Friends Foundation. We are looking at ways to provide, hopefully in 26, some lockers and vending up north to provide additional services to our community. So we're looking for that in 26. I also want to thank you all for the staffing we were able to add in 25 that has helped staff manage the amount of work that they are doing with additional program plannings to duplicate programs. That has helped tremendously. So that will carry into 26. We're just now seeing the benefits because it takes a while to fully hire, but we are seeing that. And I wanted to thank city management and all of you for making that happen this past year.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Henkel.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you have your first council member stalker to keep going over to the library. I'm just teasing. I think I watched your video and you cracked me up. Thank you. It reminded me of being in school again, someone coming down and looking underneath your book or whatever. So thank you for the laughter. I do want to ask you a little bit about the Broomfield Out Loud project, because not a lot of people, a lot of people who are in the know, but can you tell the people who are not in the know about the Broomfield Out Loud project and the award that it won?
I would be happy to, Councilmember Henkel. That was one of my favorite programs that we've ever done. And it was really a 2-year initiative, funded in part by an NEA grant, also I believe the Rose Foundation, and our staff worked tremendously hard with Broomfield Historical Society help as well, to take a bunch of oral histories from residents of the community, and then showcase those with artists. So it was a very unique experience, and was a beautiful way to show the diversity that is in Broomfield, and connect neighbors to neighbors. And it did win a award from the History Colorado. And our team just went down a week ago to get that award. And that's a big thing because it was a tremendous amount of work and it was very meaningful and impactful. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. I love watching all of that. That took a lot of work, and I just want to give your staff a huge amount of kudos for getting that accomplished. And it incorporates the whole community, which I think is very important. Last question, and I don't know if I've noticed this before, and I don't know why if I haven't. You guys have a lot of part-time positions. You know, it's more than what your typical department has. So can you explain the part-time positions and why you have them? I get the feeling you are trying to reach people for certain programming and you don't need a full-time person to do that programming, or it could be satellite areas that you're working at. I don't know.
That's a great question. And I think a lot of it is being a facility that is open 7 days a week and to 9 p.m. on Monday through Thursday means we need a lot of bodies. So that we can give staff the ability to not work every night and weekend. We have a mixture of full-time and a lot of part-time folks. And then we additionally have both in our auditorium and with the library subs that we can call in when somebody gets sick because we have so many desks to staff. You have to have people that can come pinch hit, and we are extraordinarily lucky to have some very strong substitutes that come in at last minute for us. So it's a mix of those things. We were able, again, thanks to you all, to move some of those part-time positions to benefited positions this year, which was hugely impactful for staff because we have a number of people that get their foot in the door, but really they would like full-time employment. So that is something we work on, and that's something as well that we're really focused on as far as staff culture to make sure that our non-benefited team members feel included because it can be a differentiation that we want to be cognizant of.
Great, thank you. There are actually a lot of other questions I'd like to ask, but it's more just content and understanding the plan and everything. So I'll ask that probably another time, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Delgadillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to start off by saying thank you for taking the time this last summer to teach me a little bit about the CSU extension program. And so my question is based in this. I would like to say that after going through the website, seeing all those offerings, I joked and I stand by my joke that this could really teach you how to be a functioning person. So I'm wondering, in this upcoming year, what's in store for that CSU extension? What offerings do we have? I would just love to hear more out of curiosity.
So thank you for that question. We are planning to continuing the offerings that we do have. And making sure that we are continuing to serve the community well. The last couple of years, our Master Gardeners program has brought in a lot of new volunteers, and we're in the process right now, actually, of interviewing new volunteers for that. We are hopeful with the volunteer coordinator that we added for the whole department that we can get CSU Extension some more help for for the one-time kind of offerings that they may have so that we can expand some of those programming. But really, it is a very small staff and team. We would love to add more of what CSU Extension has to offer, but we just don't have that capability at this time. But for any of you that are interested, I'm putting in a plug that we are going to have a visit down to the CSU Extension Spur. And CSU has been working really hard on some regional approaches so that we can have some additional offerings for Broomfield, even though we aren't able to necessarily host them here.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I appreciate that discussion surrounding scalability because, right, we are resource constrained and that's very thoughtful of you all. That was my only question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you so much for the presentation and the work you do. My only question really is, it's technically the budget, but not really in control, which is the SFD funds, the science, funds that I used to run and control with back in the Cultural Council days. Are they seeing any shortfalls? Are there any issues with the grants that are being presented to the library and arts?
Thanks, Councilmember Wynn. Those are sales tax based, and we do watch them pretty carefully. For this year, they're still a little bit above last year. We're expecting that we may have a decrease there. And like with the Human Services grant, we are seeing more of our nonprofits asking. So our delta between what we can, the money we have and what's being asked for is growing. So that is something we're aware of.
Yeah, and then I appreciate the explanation. My second question is the beeps. There was an increase in the presentation. Clearly, people are excited. 94%. That's a 17 increase. How can we maintain that favorability score in the survey?
If you know, I would love to hear from you because that is something that we care deeply about. The job for any CCOB employee is difficult. Public service is not always easy. So making sure that we are taking good care of our employees and helping them maintain a work-life balance is something that's top of mind. And it's something we worked really hard on this past year. We worked as a team to create some culture norms of how we want to treat each other, because sometimes when you're in service industry, you're so focused on the customer all the time that we also are wanting to make sure we're providing that level of care and attention to each other. So we're going to continue to work on that and not take our eye off that.
Those are my questions. Thank you so much for the presentation and for the answers. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't going to ask, but I wanted to follow up when you were talking to Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf. I think you uttered the phrase "up north." So since I represent up north, the heart of the newest, fastest growing part of Ward 5 and Baseline and North is about 9 miles from the library. And there'll be much more population coming. So long term, is 9 miles too far for that future audience to be that far from the library? Or is there long-term planning of how to address that going forward some years in the future? And what does up north mean?
Sure. So Councilmember Cohen, we do have a facilities master plan for the library from 2019. We are not in the place right now financially as a city to address those issues. So for the time being, we have been talking to the Baseline developers for a little while about the idea of lockers up there where people can place their holds with us and then pick their items up, almost like an Amazon locker and type. So it's 24/7 type access. And we look like we're going to be able to do that at the Buzz, which is going to be their new coffee shop, restaurant space there that's open to all the community, not just Baseline folks, because we are aware that there are a ton of new residents up there. We're also starting to offer our concerts up at the Anthem Park. And we'll continue to do that so that we can give those residents some of what we have to offer. But that's something we think about a lot because there's a huge community up there now.
So I think the buzz is how many years off?
It's indefinite.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to sit here and say it's even in the 5 or 10-year plan. But the capital that it would take in order to do that, I can't remember off of the top of my head, but I think it was around 45 million, and that was 2 years ago. So again, it's going to have to be something that we go back to the residents to say, how critical of a need is this in order to finance something of that magnitude?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the team? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Harvey and Ms. Lano. And everyone else. Next up, open space and trails.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Kristen Pritz, Director of Open Space and Trails.
Oh, yeah. I'm so used to kind of kicking back at this point and enjoying the presentation. That's not happening. But I read it. Does anyone have any questions? Well, there's one, Councilmember Lim.
The Markle Waukee open space plan. So there was a note that for that in 2025 still council will get that construction agreement at the end still, and the construction will start in 2026 supposedly.
That appears to be the plan right now. We have 100% construction documents completed. We've done the first round of staff comments on that. So our designer will need to make a few little updates. The project will be bid, and then we'll bring that to City Council, the contract for construction, if all goes as planned. And I believe that will be towards the end of November, December, that time frame.
And will residents within a certain radius get notified when that construction is going to start, just like any other CIP project?
I think that's a good idea because, you know, that will be a lot of activity out on those two sites. So yes.
Okay. And there was also a note in 26 that there would be concept design work on the Northwest Parkway Trail. So what do you foresee as far as a plan for stakeholder input, or would interested residents have to pay attention to the OSTAC agendas to know to go to OSTAC to give input?
So I think you're referring to the Northwest Parkway Underpass
Yes.
project. Just let me give you a brief update on where we are with that. We're working with Boulder County and the town of Lafayette on coming from the Wildgrass neighborhood beneath Northwest Parkway and up to the Rock Creek and Coal Creek trails. So we're doing some very conceptual costing on that project. Once we hopefully have a good agreement with Boulder County and Lafayette to do that project, then we hope to get into more design and also some communication with the community. There has been some communication and public engagement on that, but I think there will need to be a little bit more once we get the final alignment.
Okay, so we're talking possibly about community engagement, not in 26 at all, maybe more out to 27?
It could be, but I think it'll probably be a little later. We have a lot of work to do with Boulder County and Lafayette to get everybody lined up with the budget ideas that are really necessary, the commitments, I should say, from those communities.
Okay, thank you.
There's been a lot of conversation and notes about the addition of open space acquisitions. At the same time, there's been a concurrent conversation about new assets and existing asset management. With the dedicated revenue stream for open space, we've successfully purchased the Miller and McWhinney properties, along with the construction of the Markle and Watke open space management plan. So these are all exciting new things that are coming online. So I wanted to clarify one, that the purchasing of new open space acquisitions is through just that open space fund that is that dedicated tax revenue, or is there general funds used to supplement for those new acquisitions?
You are correct. For the funding of those acquisitions and really all of our open space improvements, the open space portion of the open space and park sales and use tax funds all of those things.
Okay. And then I know that, every year we see those improvements and the maintenance that exists within the open space. Is that also coming out of that dedicated open space fund that is supported by the tax revenue, or are there general funds as well being supported or being utilized for that work?
The open space sales and use tax money can be used for maintenance. So a very small portion of that is being used for maintenance right now. The Parks Division, Maintenance Division uses general fund money, and I'll defer to
Thanks,
Jennifer
KP.
Hoffman that would like to speak right now.
Mayor Pro Tem, there's conversations. So when Anna kicked us off tonight, really understanding from not just from an economic development perspective, not just from a fiscal perspective, but as a community, we are now a maturing community and not a developing community. And with that comes a whole series of conversations and decisions that need to be made about how we are activating, utilizing, and encumbering funds. Part of that is once we, from the sales tax portion of the open space and parks, once you go from acquisitions into maintenance, to your point, more trails, more parks, more open space, more access, it requires more staffing. And at this point, the staffing comes from the general fund. Having those additional conversations, and legal is included in that ballot measure that our residents passed for that sales tax, what specifically is that language? To what degree would we want to revisit that language? But certainly, it's a ripe opportunity to be able to say those funds from sales tax should be spent also on staffing and maintenance ongoing.
Right. And I think it goes along with that conversation that we've been having, is that balance of maintenance of current assets as well as acquiring new assets. And I think that goes for all of our infrastructure and assets around the city and county of Broomfield. So I'm glad to see that conversation is happening within this fund as well. So
we appreciate it. We're terming the 2027. The theme really is a maturing community. And that filter through which we review financial and growth decisions and balancing is really through that lens of a maturing community versus a whole lot of other options that are going to be coming, because they're just not. So we need to be really mindful of what we have. We need to take care of what we have and have very low risk on what comes next.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Did Councilmember Lim go yet? That's okay. I figured you did. Would anyone else have any questions for Ms. Britt? All right, you're done.
All right, thank you.
I thought more people would be leaving when they're done. I'd be excited. I get to go now. Staff Bernie Block. Performance and internal audit.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Bernie Block, Director of Performance and Internal Audit.
All right. Who wants to go first? Anything, MPT? Oh, sorry, Councilmember Henkel.
Thanks.
Did you want to go, Councilmember Shaw?
You were first.
I know I'm trying to find my notes again.
It's okay.
Oh, Bernie, thank you so much for all the work you do. I just know that you are so organized, and I wish I could be you sometimes. Yeah, you just do a tremendous job for Broomfield. And I know that you work with all the different departments and you just work strategically, methodically. You have everything planned out. I heard from other staff that you even have like your hours planned out, and it's pretty interesting because I am not like that. And I really feel like you have attention to detail that is just beyond what I've ever seen. So I wanted to ask you, since you were the only person in this position, if you think that, and maybe this isn't the question for you, but maybe this is more direction, that possibly as we grow as staff and as a city and county and a community, we are going to be at build out 125,000 people. That's another 50,000 people. As we do that, how do you view your department growing?
First of all, thank you for your comments. As far as my workload, I split my time between performance audits, process improvement. So I think it would depend on what the city and county manager's office would like me to focus on. If it's a matter of audits, then I would shift my priorities to focus on audits, and I could do that as one individual for a while. If it was to continue splitting it the way I would as we grow, we would have to think about adding additional resources.
Okay. And I do kind of worry if there's one person doing one job, is there a way that we are cross-training with other people? Heaven forbid anything happened to you. I really do worry if we have one person in a department overseeing this, where we're keeping all of our data, would another person be able to pick that up or something like that? I just wanted to know that information.
I've documented my policies and procedures for the function. So I do feel that if something were to happen to me, someone could step in, and they may take a different approach in consultation with the manager's office. My role has evolved over the years, and I'm sure it will continue as well.
Okay, thank you. And just one last question, and maybe you do or you don't know the answer to this, is your position ever a direct hire in other government systems, or is it always under the city manager? How does that work in other programs?
We're the only municipality that has an internal auditor generally. So we have a series of 3 preparation audits. So council knows that we have the third-party auditor that comes in. And that's why Bernie's role is so unique in that he is able to transition from a process improvement perspective and then that audit perspective. If there were other examples of internal auditors, then we'd be able to answer that question, Councilmember Hinkle, about where they report. But again, generally it's a third party, it's contracted. I can't remember what maybe Councilmember Cohen asked it initially, or maybe it was Mayor Pro Tem, but the focus on each one of our departments is one of the things over the last 5 years transitionally is a healthy organization doesn't have a golden key approach. And that is one person that has that key to whatever it is, whether it is the information, the spreadsheet, the historical data, which quite frankly is why everybody's freaked out. Well, I'm only going to speak for myself. When someone says we're only going to keep 3 years of emails, with that retention policy, it makes all of us gasp because we're reliant on that from a historical perspective of how it happened, when it happened, who it happened to. But again, what Bernie's been able to bring to the table, again, I know his answer was technical with the SOPs, because Bernie's irreplaceable from the perspective of having that institutional knowledge of how things work, but he's also been able to help us transition, not necessarily from a process improvement perspective, but from the importance of having that succession plan in place. So it's a very unique position. And Bernie will be the first to tell you, it doesn't matter who he reports to, his report would be exactly the same.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to know how it was structured in other places, if they had that structure. I think it is kind of nice to have somebody inside that does the auditing, because you just have those relationships with the staff members too. And you tend to understand the programs better than you would if you had to outsource a lot of that and they had to come in and learn everything. So I definitely appreciate that. What has been the hardest thing this year for you?
I think for the organization as a whole, there's a lot of work going into the ERP preparation. That's required a lot of us to shift gears and focus on those activities, but it's an investment. And so would say that's probably continues to be the organizational not challenge, but more of an opportunity, but focus.
Much.
All right, any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem Shah.
All right, thank you, Mayor. As we all know, the Brimfield and Legacy football game just started at 7 o'clock. I got to go out of here. I'm handing out the mayor's cup on behalf of the mayor. So this is my last one that I get to speak on tonight. But thank you for being here, Mr. Block. So one of the, as was mentioned, we are one of the local governments that utilizes the performance and internal audit. For 8 years, I've seen spreadsheets from your department that have dates going back many, in many cases, many, many years. While I've always appreciated this information to, understand the risk, where risk might exist, the work that is being completed, and I want to ensure that ultimately these issues are being addressed. And so, as I'm looking to 2026, I'm wondering if, with the ERP system coming online, that's going to create, many more kind of issues and conversations. I want to ensure that all these other pieces that are already existing continue to be addressed. And so I'm wondering, is it possible to add more measurements and metrics and timelines to those systems? And maybe those already exist, but to those issues to ensure that, are we moving ahead on these, or are we stagnating? If we have a high priority, is this one being addressed be ahead of a low priority? And what is that timeline? Things like that. I wanted to get your thoughts on that tonight.
Thank you for the question, Mayor Pro Tem. I would say there's a good portion of open items that are actually pending the ERP. We just have limits within our existing system in terms of reporting controls and so forth. Some of those items will hopefully be addressed with the implementation of the ERP. As far as the other items, I think it's a matter of organizational priorities, and management ultimately makes the decision on what to prioritize. I do follow up at a minimum every 6 months, some audits more frequently. And where appropriate, we'll also help offer some resources to move some things forward. But as far as the tracking of those, that's the purpose of the semi-annual performance updates, and those do have a timeline on them. As far as when management intends to implement them, we adjust those dates as well, and that's also reflected in that schedule.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Block? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to public health and environment.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Jason Bolling, Director of Public Health, and talk about irreplaceable. I have Deb Fetterspill here, my Deputy Director. I call her the Master of Finances and Budgets with her business degree. Amazing how she manages all of our complex funds. So if I don't know the answer, I'm going to be having her come in and pitch it.
Phone a friend behind you. All right. We'll start with you, Councilmember Marshall Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Falling. Just one question, or kind of questions. I see in the budget documents that it states that in 2024, 99.4% of Broomfield kindergartners were vaccine compliant. given the misinformation that's coming out of our federal government right now, are we seeing that downtick at all currently?
So it's very unique and challenging times right now with what's happening with the vaccines. Obviously, as you're aware, the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices that provides the overall recommendations to providers and also oversees the funding that we get for our vaccines for children's programs to develop that routine immunization schedule. I would say Colorado was a little bit ahead of the game last year. They changed state statute regarding requirements for immunizations for school entry, and then removed the Advisory Committee of Immunization Practices as the only scientific body or entity to guide those decisions. Secondly, the State Board of Health is now working on updated regulations that may be more aligned with the American Academy of Pediatrics and other institutions. For us, it's a little bit more of a challenge because that requires more direct outreach and education to clear up some of the confusion. At the same time, we have such strong working relationships with schools, school nurses, and the overall districts that we're not seeing major questions, confusion, et cetera, at this point in time.
Okay. Are we anticipating that that might come in the future, and is that going to put a strain on our budget to have to increase outreach?
I do anticipate there probably will be additional questions as ACIP recommendations might veer away from other scientific bodies and institutions. Thankfully, we have the state that prepares a lot of the key talking points and facts around those changes. In addition, as I mentioned before, we already have it embedded into our existing outreach mechanisms to make sure we're sharing the most up-to-date and accurate information with parents, schools, students, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mayor.
All right, thank you. And at our last State Board of Health meeting this week, I asked Director Ryan about having to backfill any of these vaccine needs. And she said we shouldn't have to as a local public agency. So the good thing is our state was proactive and is willing to, continue the outreach and the engagement and having the vaccines available at pharmacies, I think is really going to help.
Yes.
That prescription.
I
was impressed.
agree. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut, but Councilmember Cohen.
I had a similar line of questioning to start with. Just to clarify, we're not obligated to follow CDC. Is that what you're saying under the state freed us from that?
Correct. When it comes to immunizations, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices provides recommendations that often are embedded into state statute or into local rules and regulations. We changed the state law last year, so it gives us more flexibility.
That have now decided to follow the American Academy instead.
However, our funding source for our Vaccine for Children program comes directly from the CDC. So there's still a question now as whether or not they are going to allow the flexibility when state statute conflicts with ACIP recommendations.
So it's not clear.
Correct.
So they're meeting right now, and I think they've already changed mRNA. They might change some others. So that's potentially we could have a conflict in the next year with CDC. And there'll have to be a decision made at that point whether to follow the CDC in order to get vaccine funds.
Correct. So at that point, the determination will have to be at the state level, will be with the Vaccine for Children funding. If there is a requirement in place for them to follow the ACIP recommendations, what we're going to do as a state.
So if you don't anticipate, I don't know how much money we receive for vaccines. What potentially is at risk?
So locally for us, the amount of funding we receive for our immunization program is roughly around $50,000. So that state funding is a small subset of our overall nursing and immunization program. Our role, honestly, as far as immunizations, is more outreach to providers to provide the subject matter expertise, ensuring availability of vaccines, and then we do administer through our clinic to uninsured and underinsured.
Just to understand, there's a potential for a $50,000 gap if the state says we're not doing it.
Correct.
Whatever they decide, and we
Correct.
have to make up that difference in order to maintain the same level of service.
Correct.
Okay. And of course, there's the also the effect of people just avoiding vaccines in general because of the confusion. We're already seeing a tick up in COVID. Measles, we've already seen that. There's, by the way, a big burst of pertussis in Louisiana that's expected to start heading this way. So if you want to get your pertussis vaccine, now's a good time. Okay, and I was asking that in regards, you also said in your budget, you had achieved a 15% or 15.8% reduction in costs through optimizations. Can you explain what the optimizations are?
Budget optimization is what we often do every year with our budgeting, is looking at our priorities, our mandated programs through statute, our obligations, and then our city and county of Broomfield priorities. Within that, we're always looking at where can we be more efficient in our delivery of those services. Some areas where we've achieved efficiencies is one, we now have a closed loop referral system, Unite Us, that we can refer out people coming in for our services to social service nonprofits to get their needs met. In the past, that used to have to be a warm transfer where we had to reach out, make phone calls, try and arrange it, help with that case management. That's one area where we've been able to streamline services, which then frees up our staff time to be able to do other work. Another area, as I was mentioning before, is really focusing in on our administration and operations division with Deb's expertise and identifying within our areas quality improvement initiatives. So going through those project plans and processes. And on top of that, having the documentation of what we've done to be able to standardize our business processes and our duties better. So that if somebody in the past, if we used to have somebody that was out doing specific job duties, it was hard to have somebody else come in based on the conversation that was just taking place. Over the past 2 years, we've updated, I would say over 100 of our SOPs internally. So now it's all documented, and somebody that's going out and doing an on-site wastewater new inspection, we could have another environmental health specialist step in and do that role. So that's when we talk about performance and budget optimization, is really looking at where can we streamline and enhance our services.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Henkel.
Thank you, Mayor. I know where to get all my depressing health news next to me. Thank you, Todd. Just kidding. It's hard. I think you guys are really, again, frontline workers under this administration right now, and there is a lot of misinformation out there. So any way that we can get more education out there, I think our population is pretty solid. I think we had one of the higher vaccination rates in the state, correct?
That's correct.
And I think, as long as we keep that going, just appreciate your work. The only real question I have when it regards to the budget, can you just kind of flesh out the non-personnel costs? You guys noted that the budget optimization resulted in a 15.8 reduction to the operating budget. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so as we worked with our finance department and looked very closely at our mandates and obligations, there were certain areas where we couldn't cut back because we're required to do it per statute or per obligation. But there were other areas, as we looked at areas where we've had increased efficiencies, et cetera, where was our actual spending before and where were we budgeting at? And were there opportunities to potentially have cost savings within that? So, for example, one area that we looked at closely is travel and training. Can we achieve the same level of staff competencies through more in-state training or local training versus having to send people out of state for national conferences? Another example is we do a lot of meetings where we bring in providers, nonprofit partners, healthcare systems, et cetera. And we looked very closely at our food expenses and compare that to what we actually have been spending over the years. So that was another area we were able to reduce costs And then the third area were areas I was mentioning before that as we have either vacancies in positions or we have a change in a specific program that we're delivering, we're always figuring out, could we do it better? And a great example of that is our nurse home visitor program. In the past, we were the ones that were administering that program. We had the opportunity to partner with Boulder County, receive funding from Boulder County, and have them actually have the nurses that do the nurse home visitation. And we're doing more of the administrative aspect of that program. Same number of actually we've increased the number of Broomfield moms that are being served, but we're doing it with less FTE. So that's sort of the processes we use when we're looking at our service and service delivery.
So you're leveraging just partnerships with other people, right? And other entities, yeah. Oh, that's great.
So very aware of what's our metrics that we're trying to achieve, what's our target, what's the way we've been doing it, and is there a better way to do it or a way to do it more cost efficiently with partners or even how we deliver the service internally?
Yeah, I'm noticing that in the nonprofit areas too, where like, for instance, Conservatory of Dance, for instance, has a place where people can hold events, and yet they need more people to come in to do events, and then other nonprofits don't have the space. So how can they work synergistically together? Wonderful. Is there a database for something like that for health departments? I
Yes.
don't know. Okay.
So at the national level, there's a public health accreditation body. And one thing they've created is a quality initiative network. So public health agencies across the country are participating in quality improvement initiatives. You can publish your actual process and work that you do up on that webpage and share with others. It's also available through our National Association of City and County Health Officials. They are often producing toolkits, evidence-based recommendations on quality improvement, performance management, and how to enhance that in your local health departments.
Great. One last question. How is the board doing?
Oh, the board, it's been fabulous, actually. The expertise that we have on that board is amazing. And it varies across the board from environmental health expertise to a clinician, to a policy expert, to a school nurse. And the board's been really advising us on programmatic decisions and the way that we're doing our work to bring in more of that community perspective. But they've also had to look at specific regulations that we need to update. And so, as you recall, this used to be the body that would bring regulations to. It's them doing it now. We had our first hearing regarding a retail food establishment violation and the need to issue a civil penalty. So I would say it's been beneficial to Broomfield because of the availability to have a board to be able to bring those issues to versus having to put it on council's agenda when you already have extremely full agendas.
Probably move faster and better and more intelligently.
Yes.
So thank you all so much. Please give your staff a big kudos from us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Volling, for the presentation you gave in advance. My questions are going to focus really on your 2026 key initiatives, specifically advancing the department's 5-year health equity plan, reducing health inequalities among Broomfield residents. So I pulled up the 2023-2027 health equity plan, and is one of the things that you listed as could do, you said by December 30th, 2025, develop and implement a community engagement framework with specific communities and timelines identified, as well as by June 30th of 2026, BPHE staff will establish a health equity communication framework that involves the community and assures a culturally and linguistically appropriate approach. How far along are you guys with both of those timelines?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Ward. Yeah, that plan is very important to us as a department, and the Board of Health was the one that actually reviewed and approved that plan. We go in and provide updates to the board on an annual basis of the progress we're making specifically on the plan. The two areas you identified, community engagement or communications, are areas that we're actually progressing much further than we thought we'd be at that point in time when we developed the plan. We have a community engagement framework that we've adopted as a department. Out of that evolution came our Health Ambassador program. And a lot of that is how do you have the community not only receiving information, but involved in decision-making, looking at traditional power issues that happen in decision-making and where resources go. And so that was a huge success out of that community engagement process and framework. Same thing from a communications perspective. We're always, when we're planning communications campaigns, looking at our data and who's our target audience based on burden. We can then, what we're doing now is making sure that our messaging is culturally appropriate for the audiences that we're working with. And our amazing communications person, Zoe Lemieux, created a audit that she shared across the state for other departments to use as they're planning communication efforts and campaigns to make sure that are being delivered in the most effective way.
That is great to hear that some of the things that you guys had planned on were actually moving much more expeditiously than you had hoped. It's always great to hear. Kind of one of the sub points under the December 31st, 2026 deadline, you mentioned that, or the document mentions, I should say, that by December 31st, 2025, you'll collaborate with DDEI and the CCOB departments to identify policy and program opportunities and other strategies to address the detriments of health. As a quick side note for the community, but also my council members, they haven't read that document. There is a figure on page 9 of that document that kind of breaks out the different life expectancy ranges for certain areas of the city and county of Broomfield, with Ward 2 and really Ward 1 having kind of the lowest life expectancy ranges of all the city and county of Broomfield. And I was curious if you guys have started having those questions with DDEI and CCOB departments, and if there's any policy recommendations that may not necessarily be appropriate for the Board of Health to implement, but more policies that would be appropriate for City Council to implement.
Yes, Councilmember Ward, I'm actually going to let Deb take that because we have a strong partnership with DDEI, and she's actually spearheaded a lot of that work around the policy efforts. So if you want to.
Sure. Thanks for the question. So the DDEI department is spearheading a group that meets bi-monthly, and it has representation from departments all throughout the city and county. And we have organized ourselves into 3 different focus areas: policy, communications, and community engagement. And one of the things that I think we've identified not only is just there's a lot of sharing and best practices in terms of things that we're all learning and applying to our approach to our work. But as far as the policy, we've really started focusing more like internally in terms of like how we do business. And so, for instance, some of the things that Jason referenced a minute ago about our Health Ambassador program, like how do we authentically engage community in decision-making processes and when we're determining approaches to programming or where we're going to invest resources as a community. And you're seeing that showing up not just in the public health department, but in different departments across the city and county, whether it's the comprehensive plan, whether it's how we approach different efforts. And so that's really been something that we've been focusing on initially in this first year or two of gathering is our internal approaches. I know Vanessa Oldenbarton, the director of DDEI, has presented some information to council in terms of just how are we making effort to have people that are in our community know that these services are available to everyone and that lives in Broomfield. And so those are things that we talk about in terms of how things are communicated, what our different approaches are. And so I don't think at this time we've gotten to the place of making recommendations of things for council consideration, but really just looking at how do we change our operational approach and have progress being made there, and how that shows up throughout how we engage with the community, how we communicate, and some of our internal policies about how we're going to make decisions and spend resources. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, yes, that does. Thank you. And then the next thing that is listed under key initiatives is implement the 2025 to 2029 Community Health Improvement Plan. Kind of the three things that are listed on that webpage are mental health and substance use, housing quality, and preventative healthcare access. Knowing that our fastest growing population is our seniors, and seniors tend to need more resources just in general. I'm curious if that preventative healthcare access really is focused at that, as and then kind of on the flip side for mental health and substance use, is that really targeted at kind of our youth and being in schools, while also knowing that other individuals across age spectrums have mental health and substance use issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, address those two things.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Ward. In regards to the behavioral health focus, it's going to continue along the same trajectory we've had in the past. So as you recall, we had 3 goals in behavioral health. One was to reduce stigma. The second one was to increase access. And then the third one is to increase that social connectivity, because we know how much that impacts mental health and substance use. We're going to continue with those 3 priorities and targeting all populations again. We do know there are specific populations where we have more specific outreach and efforts that are going on in that behavioral health space. And just for council to remember, the way we've been able to implement that behavioral health improvement plan is through the utilization of the opioid settlement funding, which is secure, stable funding, and then the retail marijuana funding as well. And regarding the other 2 priorities, so every 5 years, we're required to do a community health needs assessment per state statute and develop a community health improvement plan. As we went out to this community, as we did our health needs assessment over the past year, we heard loud and clear from the community that there had to be a better link between housing and health, and how we know how important housing is as a determinant of health. So we're in more of a supportive role to the BHA and the Solutions Task Force of what is that data and information show from the research between housing and health. When we're looking at access to preventative services or access to care for healthcare, what we heard more from specific communities in Broomfield was lack of accessing care because of not only the ability to pay, but also because of the way the care was being delivered from a culturally appropriate point of view. And so we wanted to tackle more of the technical assistance liaison role with our healthcare providers to provide more of that feedback and help bridge that gap between medical care and doing it in a way where our community members feel safe to be able to go receive services and feel like they're getting quality services.
Okay, great. Thank you for those clarifications. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues? Not seeing any. Well, thank you both very much.
Thanks.
We have one big family, but 2 departments. Next, do we want to just finish, keep going, or take a break? It's 8 o'clock. I think we can power through. Okay, just wanted to check in. Well, hello, Public Works is first. That's the dry side, I think.
Well, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem left, I guess, but good luck at Legacy. And council,
Yeah.
thank you for taking us before break.
I know, right? You're all waiting patiently. Let's go through this. So any
Sure.
questions for Public Works? Because there's also water utilities after. So I don't know, do you want to take them both? You seem like you could answer both.
We can do both. I'm going to do both of them. And
Okay,
if you don't mind, I'd like to, since they've been here with me,
please.
let me introduce our Public Works team. It's the Deputy Director is Justin Monk. And then we actually have 7 division superintendents, and we have, so you guys get to stand up. So on the Public Works side, we have Cassie Morgan, Lawana, Melvin over on that side, and Ryan Reich over there, and Jill Johnson and Jesse Alberts on that side. And then on the water utilities, I'll just do them all at once, is Nancy Andres, Rhonda Jo Alfred Ackerman, I always get her hyphen name, Sean DeSoto, Leah Gadd, Lisa Julian, Dennis Rodriguez, Mark Laurie, and Scott Thorson. So thank you for being here.
Wonderful. Nice to see you all. All right. Any questions for Public Works, water utilities? It's a big one, but I know we've had a lot of time with them over the last few months, year.
Mayor, I wanted to also say that on October 21st, so the budget comes on October 14th. We have a study session on October 21st. Our Flow Committee will be joining Ken and introducing themselves and the progress that has been made and next steps.
Awesome. We'll get to hear from the flow.
Yes.
Wonderful. We'll start with questions. Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mayor. And obviously, thank you to all the staff for here and for the work you do. I think water, utilities, all this is very important for the success of the community, for Broomfield. You know, some of the funds that we have are seeing on, on our sheets, 100% increase, 131% for automation and maintenance. How is this gonna be, and I know it's gonna be successful, but I wanna hear how it's gonna be effective and gonna help Broomfield.
Over the last 3 years, as you guys know, we've been working through strengthening and making efficiencies and effectiveness gains within public works and water utilities. And the team, with the additional resources, additional staffing, we've been able to not only purchase additional technology, implement some technology improvements, but also add some equipment, which has allowed us to increase our efficiencies, as you saw on several of the efficiency graphs. We went from like 0% to 100% in the last 3 years. And that's all contributed to a lot of our ability to gather additional resources. And what's so critical about that is because water quality can be impacted by several different factors. Just in the last 24 hours, we had 2 water line breaks. We had one down off of 3rd and J, and then one up on 160th and Sheridan. So by having the staffing, the resources, the equipment, those resources helps us to attend to those in a timely manner to limit the impact. The one on Jade and 3rd was impacting 20 residents. So we were able to get those folks back up and back in the water supply within 3 to 4 hours.
So I really appreciate the work you do, the amount of resources that we are putting in because water is important. I'm just impressed the amount of work you guys have done over the past year. And I think that we're building something that's successful and sustainable for the next 5 or 20 years from now. So again, thank you, Mayor.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And the credit goes to the team. They've really worked hard, putting in their plans, their efficiencies, and they're here to serve the community, and they take pride in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim.
Thanks. I'll start with my dry question. So I was trying to follow the pattern, and then all of a sudden the pattern quit. So you were referring to the fact that you saved money by bringing the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing staff evaluators in-house. and then you're going to bring the snow plowing in-house, but yet the street maintenance has a lot of contractor usage.
Correct.
So this is perhaps my ignorance of what is needed to do this work, but can you explain when we would be seeing a large increase in street maintenance, why contractor usage is preferable when the other patterns are going in other directions in-house?
Let Justin answer part of this, as he has this more of a street background. He managed the street preservation program for many years, and let him answer that question.
Thank you, Councilmember Lim. Great question. With contractual work, when it comes related to street, like resurfacing and asphalt projects, those are very seasonal operations. And the level of staff that would be required to do those operations would be immense. And then we wouldn't have much for them to do over the winter months. So there's some other efficiencies in having contractors do that. There's equipment and time. When it comes to snow and ice, those contractual pieces made more sense to bring those in-house so that we had some level of control of the level of service. We had to put contractors on retainer, and it didn't make financial sense to do so.
There was a note where we were reviewing the contracted services for street maintenance, I think. So, and I don't think I'm the only council member who had some questions raised by residents about the work of the contractors at various points in time. So how is your review of our contractors for street maintenance? Ben?
Good. So the review is good. I'm not quite sure if there's a specific thing that your concerns are around, but I can answer any of those if there's a specific.
Okay. I mean, I think you've been helpful when there have been concerns about explaining the different levels of maintenance and that. But and it's very technical and, rather technical and complex to determine, I think, what level of maintenance a road needs. I know there's, matrices to, determine that and metrics to determine that. So I guess I would just say because of that complexity, it does raise questions from a lot of questions, I would say, from residents as to why are you doing this, that, or the other thing, and not, why is the contractor only doing this, and why isn't the city going full force and doing something else? Yeah.
Yeah, so that has a lot to do with our evaluation of our infrastructure. So part of our preservation approach is to do the right treatment at the right time. And so every segment of our roads are evaluated annually. And to best define a segment is usually from intersection to intersection would be a segment. As those are evaluated, they're approached in different ways. We want to preserve roads in good condition. We will maintain roads through regular maintenance and other various preservation techniques, like from a maintenance, crack seal, patching, those kind of things. And then we have a mitigation category on the streets that are in more of the fair, poor condition. And those preservation and mitigation practices are mostly going to be done in contractual fashion, where we focus is on our maintenance, our preservation techniques around those.
Okay. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you. Okay. Water question. So we've been given data in our CMO updates lately about showing the reduction in water usage this year. So is that going to impact at all our rate increase recommendations? I mean, they seem set, but yet, I mean, we have been told that water usage, obviously, if it's less, brings in less revenue. Is the reduction in water usage enough to reflect, to adjust our water rate increases?
Thank you for that question, Mayor Pro Tem is gone. Council, David Acevedo Yates, Deputy Director of Finance. So I think, to sort of answer that question, I'll reflect back to the work that we did last year in modeling the rate increases over the next 5 years. And really, last year's focus was on the base rate. So the base rate not being impacted by the variable usage that occurs from year to year. And so really stabilizing that side of it has helped us throughout this year as we've seen. And so while there has been decreased usage this year, we don't we don't anticipate that variability to have quite an impact to where we would where we have seen the need to go back to the rates and adjust sort of what the recommendation has been up to this point. Thank you.
Is Sienna Reservoir completed? I haven't seen I don't remember seeing an official announcement about that.
Correct. They're finishing up all of the final items. It's mostly related around landscaping and those type of things. And we'll be closing out that project here shortly and be making that public notice.
Okay, great. The baseline pond maintenance report that you referred to as being completed in 2026. Now, will that involve only the water bodies that are owned by the city, or is the city working on that baseline report with water bodies under the HOA jurisdiction?
It'll be just the city ponds. HOAs, if they're owned or maintained by the HOAs or a private facility, they would be responsible to do those. And we should, I think we have contract to do all the ponds and have them evaluated so that we can develop the prioritization and maintenance schedule.
I appreciated it was a relatively lengthy description of the One Water approach and how you're combining silos. The question I was left with was, how does combining silos work with separate enterprise funds?
One of the things that is important, not only from a One Water perspective, but also some of the things we are doing as an organization, City, County, and Broomfield organization, is really something called System Think, right? So you take all the systems that are part of it. So in water utilities, we also look at what's going on in community development. What are the developments going on? What are some of the CIP projects? What could affect water delivery? We also work with legal, slipped my mind, utility billing, all of those different departments, and to understand what is the complete need and how does each decision affect the other, so that when we make decisions, we don't make them in a silo or heads in the sand, that we know when we make this decision, what's the impact on these other enterprise funds? What's the impact on community development? What's the impact on engineering, economic development? All of those pieces put together. And that's kind of the System Think, or the One Water approach, is to incorporate a holistic evaluation when we make our decisions to move forward.
Okay, and then that doesn't involve I was imagining that funding resources from different enterprises would have to go into that One Water approach, and somehow you'd be crossing funds, which we can't do.
Unfortunately, we can't do that.
Yeah, we can't do that.
No, it doesn't cross funds, but it does allow us to make decisions knowing the impact, what it will have on a different fund.
Okay, good. Thank you. Those are my questions.
All right, next is Councilmember Ward. Sorry, Councilmember Cohen. Hey, Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one follow-up question related to, I think, kind of Councilmember Lim's question about the contractors. I had residents not necessarily reach out, but question a little bit. With some of the resurfacing of roads, like Via Vara, for example, there was the second portion that was completed from Northwest Parkway to the entrance of the Terracina apartment complex. And how for a week or two, it was probably going to get the terms wrong, but I don't know if it was kind of resurfaced down to either the binder course or the surface course, and it was left like that for a couple weeks. And then the final kind of asphalt layer went on top, and they were questioning why it would take so long from when it was kind of ground up to go back through and do the pavement. Sorry if that did not make any sense. I tried to
No.
put it in words, and I don't know if I did a good job or not.
Thank you, Councilmember Ward. We'll get through it. I think we'll figure it out. So I think what happens there
Okay.
is what happened at that location is a lot of our treatments and our processes are multi-part. And it takes a lot of logistics and coordination, and sometimes we're impacted with weather or equipment breakdowns. And I could see if there was something along those lines and get back to you specifically with that project. But oftentimes that's what happens is we begin the process. We have a what we would call an underlayment layer that you're probably referring to. And then maybe another part of that seal was coming later. And sometimes that takes a minute to get done. When we get into areas like that don't have, it's a high density area, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do some of the more, I would call them more intimate information, like notices, like notification on those things where we couldn't necessarily door knock everyone like we would do on a very small project. So just does that kind of give you the answer you're looking for, or?
Yes, it does. I was just kind of curious. I mean, it wasn't really that big of an issue, but it just kind of puzzled some people's heads, and I didn't quite have an answer, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, yep.
Any other questions? Councilmember Cohen?
Thank you, Mayor. I have I guess what we call a dry and a wet question. On the dry side, there's reference to, I think it was a 70% goal of infrastructure being good to fair at 70%. Is that the best practice standard, or is that the best we can do, or how do you address that?
The industry standard is typically somewhere between 70 and 80%. Currently, our good to satisfactory rating is currently sitting at 84%, with about 15.5% in the fair or poor condition.
How does that compare?
So we are above our goal, and we are slightly above the national standard on how much of our percent of our roads are in good or satisfactory condition.
That includes one more road that's still gravel, right?
Correct.
Someday maybe that'll get paved. And I'll ask with some reservation, can we get an update on the north area water tanks?
Yes, we are in the process of gathering our early work proposal, and then we'll be bringing that to council. Our hope is to do that on October 28th after the budget approval. And that'll be the early package. And then in about March, after the bonds have been sold and we receive the revenues, we will be coming back to council to issue the amendment to the contract for the remaining pieces of the North Water Tank. And so the construction should begin. You should start seeing movement if council approves the contract in October and January. And then it'll take about 30 months to 36 months to complete.
October 26.
Yeah.
What was January?
They'll start construction in January.
Oh, okay. And what are we presently constructing?
2 potable water tanks.
Partially buried.
Partially buried,
All right.
yes.
And I know Councilmember Anderson's next, and I know what she's going to ask, but before she does, I wanted to note that you guys apparently have good tasting water.
Yes, we do.
How exactly does that, how do you compete in the national? Do you haul a nice bottle of water on the airplane and take it to the competition, or
Pretty
do you
much.
draw it from the tap? What tap do you draw it from?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, we do. We did, our water teams, utilities teams did win the best tasting water title at the Rocky Mountain Water Conference. And we will be representing the Rocky Mountain region at the Nationals in June. And there's 17 regions, so there'll be 17 different folks competing for the national title. Last time Colorado won was in 2017.
Well, I have in-laws who come from Florida, so it's not, doesn't take much for them to have say it's better tasting water. But if you've ever been to Florida, it doesn't taste good down there. But they always remark how good the water tastes when they come visit. So now we have
Thank you.
proof. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next is Councilmember Anderson.
I just want to say that the best tasting water is the water that doesn't taste at all. Okay, so that is like the congratulations. Okay, so this is this might be the appropriate time to ask the questions related to Eagle Trace, and one of them might be a little bit off topic. But the first one is, and I know it's a very there's a lot of feelings around this in Eagle Trace and even the surrounding community, because this is a very important discussion. And just part of this is just to set some people's fears at ease. But I just want to ask this first question. Is, as we review the current budget discussion, could you clarify how it intersects with the Water Enterprise Fund? Specifically, if there are any anticipated costs related to procuring water rights for Eagle Trace Golf Course? Would those be allocated through the Enterprise Fund rather than the general budget under discussion?
I'll take that question. I was gonna say Councilmember Rutt. Any dollars that would be purchasing any other rights or shares would come out of the enterprise fund. They would not be general fund dollars.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question is, this is not really water. So it might be for Manager Hoffman, but is it safe to say that there's no money budgeted for Eagle Trace because this is currently privately owned at this time and an ongoing conversation? Can we?
That is correct. We have not been approached, nor have we had any conversations, nor have we been in communication with the current owner of Eagle Trace about doing anything with the land.
Okay, thank you. So that will come as things evolve in the future, and that is why we're not discussing that today in this budget discussion.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And that is all my questions, although I wish I had more about the water. So thank you.
Well, I don't have any questions either. I feel like I'm pretty well informed on all things public works, and you guys are amazing. And we're just so excited to be able to tackle that backlog of so many projects that we didn't have the resources for. So go fight, win. Let's do it. And thank you all. That's really all we have on the agenda tonight. So last call for questions on this batch of budget. Being none, that concludes the items on this evening's agenda. Is there any other business to come before the council?
Just the score of the Legacy Broomfield game.
Well, it was halftime and Legacy was in the lead, 24-6, but that could have changed. If anybody's keeping track, there being no further business, the study session is adjourned. Good night, y'all.